Listen up, you beautiful bastards. I'm Insipid, and this is Runescape. You might not be terribly surprised that we're about to have another little topic that we're going to talk about. We are on the last of the biological mandates, as I have encountered them. That is not my computer crashing. That is, in fact, something crashing. We'll find out in a second. While we're waiting and finding on out, it's going to be death. And I wanted to really start this episode off by saying this. This is a heavy topic. It's not always an easy topic, and if you're having any kind of troubles right now that don't make you as capable of handling this topic right now, we get it. It's cool. You're welcome to come back another time when you're better equipped, or alternatively, you're welcome to just skip this one. I have plenty of other videos that are perfectly entertaining. Yes, I agree, RuneScape did just crash. It's fine. Hashush. And so, with that, let's get straight on into it. There is a mandate within us that says that we will degrade and eventually die. There are some species on the planet that get away with cheating. They get away with just not having DNA that degrades over time, and they just get to throw out some jazz hands and keep living forever as long as nothing kills them. You'll excuse the manner of speaking, of course. And so, to that effect, it's something that we must prepare for, something we must design around. I know I mentioned it in a previous episode, the notion of designing with biological mandates in mind. And if you look at our systems as a whole, we have plenty of laws surrounding the nature of death. If you die incorrectly, you can miss out. We have insurance that covers death. And if you don't insure yourself correctly, your loved ones will miss out. We have industries built around death. And you will find industries built around every single biological mandate. Count on it. Don't even for a moment think that they don't. I will argue this point till I turn blue. If you have a biological mandate, there is an industry for it. You like to poop? We sell toilet paper. We're ready for you. Specifically, I'm going to say it out loud just so we kind of have it in the air. Funeral homes, flower shops, we have ways and rituals that we take care of dead bodies. Selling burial plots, selling gravestones. There is a market, there is an industry. Cremation services, getting people to places to dump their bodies. There's plenty of industry that goes into the process of death. So I wanted to cover our prior bases really quickly and get them more out of the way. I wanted to discuss a little bit about the nature of grieving for a moment. There are mechanisms. Correct grammar, it's important. There are mechanisms within us that when we lose a source of comfort, protection, confidence, that we experience withdrawals from their presence. We have chemical reactions to a person's presence that we view as safe and secure, that makes us feel happier and safer. And then when that person disappears from our lives, that introduction of that chemical disappears with them. Now, obviously, I don't want to diminish this topic by making it scientific, but that is the area that we're going to emphasize for these conversations because we're talking about societal design. There are heady discussions of the spiritual nature of death that I want to capture as well, but I think those will definitely be separate videos. And further, one could approach all of these topics that I have discussed prior from a religious perspective, both in terms of the traditions that occur within, stories and mythology that extol or prohibit particular behavior sets. We already discussed prior the nature of the religious influences on, say, eating. And so there are plenty of those topics that would happen with the nature of death and burial. But I want to try and, as I said before, encapsulate more of the scientific dimensions of it, because there are plenty of things that we, as scientists, have been pursuing, but we just haven't quite got our hands down on yet. You remember our discussion about sleep? Yeah, we understand a whole lot of what happens, but we don't get it yet. The notion that we we have extra dimensional spaces we go to post death is about as challenging to us scientifically as the notion that when we sleep we hallucinate wildly and then wake up feeling somehow recuperated. And so, in the end, I hope that I am able to bring a certain amount of lightheartedness to this topic in general, but at the same time, there is an ounce of fatalism that must be accepted in that we all die. It's a thing. And so, how do we grasp at that? I know that there is extensive literature on the nature of death itself, plenty of literature on grieving. I mentioned that before. And I said it not because we necessarily worry ourselves about death, but because post-death we experience grieving of those who are gone. And so I was very, very fortunate in my kind of conduct of my conversation of this prior. I'd been able to go over the topic once before, luckily. And it culminates in one very important idea to me. And that is this: live a life that can be celebrated after you're gone. I didn't want to select that. No, stop it. We do concern ourselves very greatly with our pleasure right now, but there are so few things quite as self-congratulatory as being able to know that the people that you influenced during your life will be able to reflect upon you well. And that's not success. That's not being a master of the industry. That's not having the most money. That's legitimately treating people very, very well around you. And your legacy becomes your kindness. Or your kindness becomes your legacy. Is it the other way around? I think it is. I wanted to hop onto another kind of side strategy about all of this. And that is the notion of evolutionary psychology. We do try and study not just the way that we die, but we also study the way that we engage in strategies during our lives to maintain the species. And so within the realm of dying, it has to be discussed to a certain extent, in my opinion. The nature of how we accomplish what we do in a given life. In a given life to help the species as a whole. Now, I'm not a person with a passion or a purpose or anything quite so grand when it comes to the species as a whole. I'm here to bring goofs and gratitude. If that message ultimately gets to be my legacy, good, okay? Darn. I enjoy getting to go ha ha ha, and I enjoy being gratified for what I get to experience now. And so the notion of death can be obviously very disturbing, but it can be significantly less challenging if you are coming to the strategy of living from a place of I have enjoyed as much as I can while I could enjoy it while being responsible. If one were to try and take an Epicurean perspective, Epicurus being someone who very much extolled wanting less as opposed to wanting more, one can certainly get away with a great deal of latitude in how they define their enjoyment of their life, and they can do it on quite the budget, so to speak. Far more reasonably than the hedonist, wherein it's too easily extolled that they lose sense of themselves and their finances. And this has gone well and far astray from the original topic. And I suppose that does bring to bear a very important point that I did want to bring up. I mentioned it before, and I kind of brushed it. I just brushed over it, and it went away, and I apologize for that. Death is uncomfortable. Death is supposed to be uncomfortable. We don't want to face off against it. For all of my niceties and my platitudes so far, it's all gusty rambling in the face of a very nefarious opponent, one that we have railed against endlessly throughout time, and for which here, in my attempts to kind of convey it The best I think I've done is emphasize how scary and uncomfortable we are as mortals with trying to handle the topic in general. We very much want to sit proud. We want to sit proud and stare down death and say that I am not afraid of you, when in reality we are all blusteringly horrified. We face off against it and we taunt it. We have our adrenaline junkies who are out seeking it as if to parade around their own mortality, which is not, of course, to speak against adrenaline junkies. I love you guys. You guys do some amazing shit that I cannot even comprehend doing on my own account. But I do also want to call you out in terms of playing with death. You guys you're playing the statistics and you're doing it very, very well, and you're having a great time. I hope that you guys are having the absolute best of it, and that your mission is as anywhere successful as I hope that mine is in the same time of cherishing what we are currently experiencing. And I suppose, if anything, those would be the two takeaways I would want for this video. One, cherish it. We have so much to cherish, and it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, and the right set of eyes, but you'll find it. You just need to look. Count your blessings. And secondly, that it is an uncomfortable topic, and we are facing off against it, and it is part of our process, part of our destiny, to try, if nothing else, to understand what we are experiencing. Aging is not very frequently a graceful affair. And as we linger on the topic of death, as we kind of ruminate on its nature, we perpetually, by the moment, march towards it. And I suppose that is the greatest irony. You're running the clock against death itself to understand it before you succumb. That is possibly the least fair or fun game I've ever heard of. But by God, I'm going to play it like I own it. And hopefully I'll get to come out on the other side and tell you how well I did. Now, with that, I do want to take a really quick second to say a big old thank you to Deep Down Dirty record labels for letting us use their music during this episode. And then I certainly want to say thank you to these fine people. These are the people that make these streams and videos possible. Thank you very much. I certainly can't do it without you. And with that, it's been real. It's been fun. And catch you guys on the flip side. Take care, everybody. Hey, really quick. Wanted to add a quick addendum to the video you just watched. The thing is that there is one other aspect that I wanted to talk about, but I just lost it in the moment. And that we try and press back against our due date in our many ways, and that can be I'm gonna start eating more lettuce, you know, because that's good for you. The roughage, it's good for your digestive tract. You see, in the fiber, or I'm gonna try and eat less red meat. I'm gonna eat lower fat. I'm gonna eat higher fat. I'm gonna watch the carbs. All right, maybe I'll do something fancy like exercise, or you know, I'm going to try and engage in more positive thinking day to day. And there's all these many ways that we try and change ourselves to put off the due date, to push back against death. And at the same time, we constantly run the risk of an accident, something completely out of the blue, an act of God, getting struck by lightning. And there's all of these manners in which we may perish. Yet at the same time, we already know that cardiovascular health. Oh, thank you. Hey, noises. Is like our number one killer, and so like we're just like trying to target that. More exercise, eat better, whole wheat, and we're just like clawing at the problem, trying to like stave it off. And so I just wanted to add this really quick addendum. Sorry for ruining the ending to the video. Take care, everybody.